Hey guys, it's Tina Azucena here, and I'm going to take you through a very quick Lightroom edit on this photo that was taken of me in Arizona just a couple months ago. So first things first, this photo is looking quite blue, so what I'm going to do is toggle over here with the temperature slider and turn it a little bit more yellow. I want to add in some warmth, just a little bit. I'm going to leave the tint slider alone for now. I can go back and touch that up in the end if I need to. Also going to leave the exposure alone. I'm going to pop right over to contrast. So typically when doing horse photography, increased contrast can actually be helpful in bringing out the horse's features. But in this case, since the photo is a smidge dark and I just really want to focus on having a light, clear photo, I'm going to drop the contrast between 45 and 50. And also, you'll notice that this photo isn't totally clear, but by the time we're done with it, it should be suitable for social media. All right, so we're down at 49 of the contrast. You can see that before and after, we've already lightened it up quite a bit. So highlights are going to affect, in this case, the background of the photo. You see a lot of bright whites above the mountains. And while we were in Arizona, I just thought the skyline was so cool. So if you go ahead and watch as I drop down the slider, you're going to see the mountains pop up just a little bit more. And if we go the opposite direction, everything just turns really bright in the background, which in turn does create a kind of cool effect on me and the horse, but I want to see the background. Arizona was gorgeous, and up in Washington, we don't really get to see the sky and dry mountains like that, so I'm going to show it off as much as I can. All right, next is going to be the shadows. This is going to affect mostly the horse's neck and our faces, so I'm going to bring that up to about 55. We'll drop it right here, 55. Perfect. All right, so we're getting brighter. You're starting to see the horse's eye become a lot more noticeable. You'll see the depth in his eyes, the different shadows, and the way the light plays on his eye. All right, so next we're going to move to the whites. I'm going to bring the whites up just a little bit to add a little brightness. We'll knock it right to about 15 to 20. And then I'm going to bring the blacks down. So we kind of muted a lot of the blacks already by lifting the shadows, and I just want to bring a couple of those tones back in. So now you can see before we have a lot of dark tones, more blue, and now we're looking at a more bright, light, evenly lit distributed photo. I'm going to increase the clarity to 2. And then we're going to go ahead down here and play with the curves. This is my favorite part. I could do this for hours, and I have, but today we're just going to do a really quick little tutorial here with the sliders, or the curves, I'm sorry. All right, so I'm going to bring this up, and this is going to affect the shade of black and how much black is let through. So I'm going to bring it up a little bit to make my black softer, and I'm going to shift it right over here. And next I'm going to pull this down. I want my shadows and my darks a little bit darker, but as you can see, it just made the image a little more flat. So I'm going to take these mid shadows here and pull it up again. And as you can see, my face just got a lot smoother in the color. Everything just became really nice just then. So here's a before, here's an after. All right. I'm going to skip the red, green, and blue specific sliders right now since we're just doing a quick tutorial. So I'm going to move right back down to hue, saturation, and luminance sliders. You can have a lot of fun with these. Make your photo look really crazy. And again, you can spend hours doing this to tweak it just as you want, but we're going to fly through this pretty quickly. So as you can see, this photo does have a lot of red tones in it, especially with the horse. My lips are definitely more of a red tone, so I'm going to pump up the saturation just a little bit with this. Just a slight bit. We're up at 33, and you can see that the red and the warmth really just grew in the photo. I'm going to slip on over to the orange. There's a lot of orange in the background, and I'm just going to see what happens when I pull the saturation down. Okay, this is a little bit crazy looking. And opposite, I look a little bit like an Oompa Loompa, so I am going to just bump it up. Let's just say 8 for now. 8 looks good. And then this slider right here, if I bring it down all the way, you're going to see a lot of splotches on my face. If I bring it up, it's going to look extremely and unnaturally light. So I'm going to leave it here, let's say around 14, 15, just to brighten the areas where the sun would naturally hit. There's a lot of yellow in this photo, but I'm not going to mess with this too much. I really like the color behind me. It was true to the scene. The sun was setting. It was putting this gorgeous glowing orangey gold light on the mountains behind me, so I'm going to let that stick. There's not a lot of green in this photo, so I'm going to skip that one as well. I'm going to go right over to aqua, and I can see in the sky there's definitely some aqua, so I'm going to bump the saturation up. And then I'm going to drag the slider a little more to the right so it's a little more blue toned. But you can see it really just made the background come into play and bring some really interesting tones that play up with the yellow and the orange. All right, I'm going to pop over to the blue. Now this is going to mostly affect my shirt, and I want my shirt to kind of match more of the halter and have the focus be on the warmer tones. So I'm going to pull the saturation actually all the way down. And I actually love how this looks. So you can see really bright blue down to pretty much no blue at all. And I'm really liking how that looks. I'm going to skip the purple and the fuchsia or magenta because I don't really think we need it. All right, skipping on down to the highlights. This is really fun. You can totally change your photo in so many ways. But I want to add some golden yellow highlights. So I'm going to take it, let's say, up to 52 and pull this up. And if I keep going, you'll notice that a lot more of that color is introduced into the photo. So I'm going to bring it, let's say, around 9. And then for the shadows, if you leave it where it's natural, where it comes, okay, at the 0% where it comes, that made no sense. If you leave it as it's defaulted, there we go, the default setting at 0, it gives you a really nice warm shadow, so I'm just going to bump that up a little bit. I'm going to increase the sharpness to about 55, somewhere between 50 and 60, and pop down here to the very last thing is going to be our primary sliders. Now this is really fun. It's really getting into the processing and the final tweaks and touches. So the red here is really going to mess with the photo a lot since we do have so many red tones. And I do like this photo because it has a lot of color. So I'm going to bump it up to about 9. The green is going to change the background. So if I pull that down here, it really mutes it out. So I'm going to pull it about halfway down, say about 25. And then lastly, I'm going to pump the blue up just a little bit to add a little more color. And here we go. So this photo is looking a bit yellow. I'm going to finally just kind of drop the temperature down a little bit. I think we can lower the exposure. And then finally, I want to grab this curve and bring it up just a bit. I'm thinking that looks pretty darn cool. All right, you guys, here's the before, here's an after, and here is a side by side. A lot more definition in the horse's face. Just a lot better color profile. I'm really happy with this. I love the darker version too. I think it's very neat. But if I were to post something, I really do enjoy the one on the right. I think you can see the brightness of the setting, and it really looks a lot more like Arizona. I hope you enjoyed this quick tutorial, and please PM me or leave a comment below if you have any questions.